Right outside the back door of near every old Amish home, in a pot or a patch of ground where the cook can reach it in 2 steps, there grows a certain humble green herb that the family would sooner do without almost anything than be without. It's not fancy, it's not rare, it costs next to nothing, and it grows so easily a child could raise it. And yet, it's used near every single day, in the cooking, in the healing, in the freshening of the home, one of the most useful plants a family can grow. That herb is mint, and today I'm going to tell you all the reasons my people keep it right by the door, and why you ought to grow a little of it right by yours. So let me get right into it. Now, let me say first why mint, of all the herbs, so often earns that place of honor right by the back door. It's for a simple, practical reason, the same reason you keep the salt within reach on the stove. Mint gets used so often for so many different things that it wants to be right there at hand, where the cook or the mother can step out and pluck a few leaves in a moment without walking to the far garden. An herb used once in a while can grow out in the patch, but an herb reached for every day wants to be right by the door. And mint is exactly that, an everyday herb reached for again and again, and so it earns its spot right by the threshold. And there's another reason too, a happy one. Mint grows so eagerly, so vigorously, spreading and thriving with almost no care at all, that it's one of the easiest things in the world to keep by the door, forgiving of neglect, coming back year after year, giving and giving for almost nothing in return. So, let me tell you all the ways it gives. The first great use is in the kitchen, in the cooking and the flavoring, for mint is a wonderful culinary herb. It brings its fresh, bright, cooling flavor to so many dishes. It's lovely with lamb and with many meats. It brightens peas and potatoes and a great many vegetables. It's wonderful in sauces and jellies and dressings. It freshens up a fruit salad or a dish of berries. It flavors sweets and desserts. And it makes cool, refreshing drinks. Mint added to water or lemonade or iced tea on a hot summer day, so cooling and reviving. A few leaves of fresh mint, right there by the door, brighten and lift so much of the everyday cooking, and having it fresh and at hand means the cook uses it freely, where a body who had to buy it dried would use it rarely. That constant fresh use is a big part of why it earns its place. The second great use, and here's where it becomes more than just a flavoring, is in the gentle home remedies, for mint has a long and honored history as a soothing herb. Its most famous use is for the stomach and the digestion. A cup of warm mint tea, made from the fresh leaves steeped in hot water, has long been a soothing comfort for an upset or uneasy stomach, for that too full feeling after a heavy meal, for a bit of indigestion, settling and easing and comforting. Folks have reached for mint tea after meals and for a troubled stomach for a very long time, and there's real gentle comfort in it. Mint tea is also simply a pleasant, soothing, calming drink of an evening, warm and fragrant and mild. And the cooling quality of mint has been used to freshen the breath and the mouth, and its fragrance to ease a stuffy head. So right there by the door grows not just a flavoring but a gentle old comfort, a soothing cup for an uneasy stomach or a calm evening always at hand. The third use is in the freshening of the home and the keeping off of pests, for mint's strong, fresh, clean fragrance is useful in all sorts of ways. That lovely minty scent freshens a room, and folks have long used mint, fresh or dried, to keep a home smelling clean and sweet in sachets, strewn about, set in a bowl. And here's a genuinely useful thing, that same strong scent that we find so pleasant, many pests find quite disagreeable. Mint has long been used to help keep away certain insects and pests, mice and ants and moths and such, often disliking its strong smell, so folks would plant it near the house, set sprigs in the pantry and cupboards and drawers, and use it to help keep the little pests at bay, a natural, pleasant-smelling helper against them. So mint freshens the home and helps guard it against pests, all with that same clean fragrance, one more reason to keep it close. Let me tell you a little about the growing of it because it's one of the great joys of mint, how forgiving and generous it is. You can start it from a small plant or even from a sprig set in water till it roots, and once it takes hold, it near grows itself. It wants a bit of sun, though it tolerates some shade, and a bit of water, and beyond that it asks almost nothing. It comes back faithfully year after year, dying back in the cold and springing up again come warmth, hardy and dependable. You harvest it simply by pinching off the sprigs and leaves as you need them, and the more you pinch and use it, the bushier and more generous it grows, so using it freely only makes it give more. It's very near the perfect plant for the beginner, for the person with no confidence in growing things, for it succeeds almost no matter what you do and rewards you richly. If you've ever thought you couldn't grow a thing, mint is where to begin, for it will make a gardener of you with almost no effort at all. And let me tell you how to keep it for the winter, for the old folks didn't just use it fresh in summer, but put it by for the cold months too. You simply cut good sprigs and hang them in small bunches in a dry, airy, shaded place until they're crisp and dry, then strip the dried leaves and store them in a jar out of the light, and there you have your own dried mint all winter long for your teas and your cooking, from the same plant that gave you fresh mint all summer. So the one plant by the door feeds the family its mint the year round, fresh in the warm months, dried in the cold, and it costs nothing but the little effort of drying a few bunches at summer's end. That's the old way, you see, taking summer's abundance and putting it by for winter, even in something as small as a jar of dried mint on the shelf. And there's not just one mint, but many, which is part of the fun of it. There's the common spearmint, sweet and mild, the great all-purpose kitchen mint. There's peppermint, stronger and more pungent, especially prized for the soothing teas. And there are all manner of others folks have grown and loved, mints that carry hints of other flavors, each with its own character. A family might grow one favored kind or several right there by the door, and there's a pleasure in coming to know them, in having your own favorite for your tea and another for your cooking. But any of them will serve you well, and the common spearmint is a fine and generous place to start. Let me say a bit more about the everyday kitchen uses too, because I don't want you thinking of mint as only for fancy dishes, for its everyday uses are the sweetest. There's the simple cup of fresh mint tea, nothing more than a handful of leaves in hot water, which is one of the pleasantest and most soothing drinks there is, taken plain or with a bit of honey. There's the sprig of mint dropped into a pitcher of water or a glass of iced tea on a hot day, turning plain water into something cool and reviving. There's the fresh mint chopped over a summer dish of new potatoes or fresh peas or sliced tomatoes or a fruit salad, lifting it with that bright, cool freshness. These aren't grand culinary feats. They're the small, everyday brightenings that make plain home cooking a pleasure. And having the mint right there at the door means you reach for it constantly, folding that fresh brightness into the everyday food of the family. That's the real gift of the doorstep herb, not the rare fancy use, but the constant everyday one. I remember the mint by the door of my growing up years and how it was simply part of the life of the house. It grew in its bounded patch right by the kitchen door, thick and fragrant, and my mother stepped out to it a dozen times a week without a second thought, for the cooking, for a soothing cup when someone's stomach was uneasy after a big meal, for a pitcher of cool mint water on a hot afternoon, for a few sprigs to freshen a room. We children would brush past it and catch that clean, sharp scent, and pluck a leaf to chew for the fresh taste of it. It was always there, always giving, asking almost nothing, a small green fixture of home as steady as the door itself. And I understand now that it was a perfect little emblem of the whole way we lived, a small need met simply and freshly and for free from our own doorstep, rather than bought in a package from a store. That mint by the door taught me, without ever a word, that a family can provide so much for itself, so simply, from so little. And it's worth remembering that this was once no peculiar Amish thing at all, but the common way of the whole world. Nearly every cottage and farmhouse across the generations had its herbs by the door. Its little dooryard garden of the useful plants reached for daily, the mint and the other kitchen and healing herbs kept close at hand where the cook and the mother could reach them. It was simply how folks lived, growing their own small, useful things right by the threshold, and like so much else, that common wisdom faded as the store came to sell everything in packages, and folks stopped growing even the simplest useful herb, until now most homes have not a single living useful plant by the door, and folks buy their dried flavorings and their remedies and their fresheners, each in its own package, having forgotten they could grow so much of it themselves from one humble plant. My people simply kept the old dooryard herb, never let it go, and it serves them still exactly as it served folks for all those generations. And it's there for you to take up again too, as simply as setting one pot by your door. Now, Let me be the honest, careful neighbor and give you some real and important cautions, because we're touching on using an herb for the body now, and that always deserves honesty and care. First, and hear this plainly, mint is a gentle, pleasant, comforting herb, but it is not a medicine and not a cure for anything serious. A cup of mint tea may soothe an ordinary uneasy stomach or a bit of after-dinner fullness, and that's a real and pleasant comfort. But it will not cure a real illness, and it's no substitute for a doctor. If you have real, persistent, severe, or worrying stomach troubles, or any serious or lasting symptom, that's for a doctor, not for mint tea, and you should go and not put it off. The gentle herb is for the small everyday discomforts. The doctor is for anything real. Never let a soothing cup of tea keep you from getting real help you need. A few more honest cautions on the remedy side. For some folks and some conditions, mint can actually disagree. And for certain stomach troubles, such as the reflux that some folks suffer, mint can make things worse rather than better. So it doesn't suit everyone, and you should pay attention to how your own body responds. As with any herb taken for the body, if you're pregnant or nursing or taking medicines or managing an ongoing health condition, it's wise to have a word with your doctor or pharmacist before using mint or any herb medicinally in any regular or concentrated way, for even gentle herbs can sometimes interact or not suit. And of course, be sure of what you're growing and using, that it's truly mint and clean and safe before you put any plant in your body. These are the plain, sensible cautions that go with using any herb, and following them keeps the gentle old ways safe. And one plain practical caution about growing it, quite apart from the health of it. Mint spreads, and I mean it truly spreads, vigorously, its roots running out underground and sending up new plants until, if you let it, it will take over a whole garden bed and beyond, crowding out everything else. So the old wisdom is to contain your mint. Grow it in a pot or in a bed bounded so its roots can't run wild, or in a spot by the door where it can spread without harm and where you don't mind it filling in. Plant it loose in the middle of your good garden and you'll be fighting it for years. Contain it, and it's a joy. That's a real and practical bit of knowing that every old gardener learned, sometimes the hard way. With all those honest cautions given, let me tell you why I so love this humble herb by the door, and why it stands for something bigger than itself. Because mint by the back door is really a little picture of the whole old way of living, of a family providing for its own small needs simply and cheaply from its own hands and its own ground, rather than buying everything from a store. Think of it, that one little plant costing almost nothing, growing with almost no care, gives the family fresh flavoring for the cooking, a soothing comfort for the stomach, a pleasant calming tea, a freshener for the home, and a guard against pests, all from a patch of green by the door, year after year, for free. Where most folks would buy each of those things separately, in packages from a store, the family with mint by the door simply steps outside and plucks what it needs. That's the old self-reliance in miniature, meeting your own small needs from your own doorstep. And it's beautiful, and it's a thing anyone can begin, even with just a single pot on a windowsill or a step. And there's something lovely, too, in the simple pleasure of it, in having living, growing, fragrant green things right at your door, at your hand. To step outside and brush the mint and smell that fresh, clean scent, to pluck a few leaves for your tea or your cooking, to have that little bit of living green tended right by your threshold, is a small daily joy, a small daily connection to growing things and to the old way of living close to what you use. In our world of packaged everything, bought from far away, there's a real and gentle richness in growing even one useful thing yourself, right by your door, and using it fresh, day by day. And once you've got your mint going by the door and seen how easy and rewarding it is, let me tempt you to add a few more. For mint is the gateway to a whole little dooryard herb patch, and the others are near as easy and useful. There's parsley, so useful in the everyday cooking, fresh and green and full of goodness, chopped over near anything. There's thyme, hardy and fragrant, wonderful in the soups and stews and with the meats, and long used in soothing ways for a cough. There's sage, sturdy and grey-green, fine with poultry and rich dishes and long valued as a gargle for a sore throat. There's chives, easy as can be, giving that mild fresh onion note to eggs and potatoes and soups. There's rosemary, fragrant and lovely with roasts. Each of these is easy to grow, useful near every day, and happy in a pot or a little patch by the door alongside your mint. Grow even a few of them, and you've got a whole little apothecary and spice shelf growing green right at your threshold, fresh flavoring and gentle old comforts for the cooking and the household, all from a few humble plants that ask almost nothing. That's the old dooryard herb garden, the little patch of useful green by the kitchen door that near every home once had, and it's one of the sweetest and most rewarding small pieces of the old self-reliant life to take back up. Start with the mint and let it lead you to the rest, one easy plant at a time. And here's one last sweet thing about mint that captures the whole spirit of it. Because it grows so eagerly and spreads so freely, mint is the herb folks share. A neighbor with a good patch can give you a rooted sprig or a division that'll grow into a whole patch of your own at no cost to either of you. And so mint passes from hand to hand, home to home, neighbor to neighbor, the way so many good things did in the old days. My own mint, and my mother's before it, came as a sprig from someone else's patch, and I've given away more starts of it than I could count. There's something lovely in that, in a plant so generous it makes gift givers of everyone who grows it, spreading through a community, hand to hand, like the neighborliness it represents. So when you get your mint going, and it will surely give you more than you need, pass some along. Share a rooted sprig with a neighbor or a friend or your grown children, and let the old doorstep herb keep spreading from home to home the way it always has, carrying a little of that old self-reliant, neighborly spirit right along with it. So, here is what I'd leave you with. You don't need land or a garden or any skill to speak of to have this. Get yourself a little mint, a pot of it will do, and set it right by your own back door, or on your step, or on a sunny windowsill if that's what you've got. Keep it contained so it doesn't run wild, and then use it. Pluck it for your cooking. Steep a few leaves for a soothing cup after a heavy meal, mindful of the honest cautions. Enjoy its fragrance freshening the air. Let it help keep the little pests at bay. And feel, in that one small, humble plant, a little of the old self-reliant way of providing for your own small needs from your own doorstep, simply and freshly, and for almost nothing, the way my people have kept their mint by the door for generations. Because, in the end, that humble herb by the door is a small thing, but it holds something big, the whole old idea that a family can meet so many of its own needs, simply and cheaply and beautifully, from its own hands and its own ground, rather than buying it all. Start with one pot of mint, and you've taken one small, sweet-smelling step back toward that older, freer, more self-reliant way of living. If this is the kind of practical, rooted old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that makes you a little more capable and self-reliant and connects you back to the good sense of those who came before, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together, because some of the most valuable things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget, and the humble herb kept fresh by the door is surely one of the sweetest of them.